The following program was provided by an independent producer solely responsible for its content. The opinions expressed do not necessarily represent the views of this station, its staff, board of directors, or underwriters.
Hello, and help me welcome Kristie Hart. And Kristie, you're running for the Board of Education.
I am. Thank you for having me.
Well, you're welcome, and tell us a little bit about yourself and why you got into this predicament, running for election.
Good choice of words. My name is Kristie Hart. I grew up here in Nashua. I went to preschool here. I graduated high school here. I went to college in New Hampshire. Actually, twice. I have a bachelor's, which I got first, and then did it backwards and got my associate's. It's a different story. And I said I had a small stint in Massachusetts, and my husband and I moved back here a little over a year ago, and we've got 3 young children.
Oh.
Young, I mean young. My oldest is 3.5. My middle is 2, and my youngest is 3 months now.
Well, I saw him a couple of weeks ago.
That's right, you did see him, yeah, my little appendage. So it feels weird without him, actually. So it's a busy household, and I decided to run for a few reasons. The catalyst to it all was actually my daughter started preschool, and they wanted her to wear a mask. And I have an issue with masks in general for children in school, but especially with a child as young as 3. There's a lot that they need to learn and do, and that's a whole different ballgame that we can get into later. And I was very against it, and I, with advice from friends and family, it was sort of suggested hey, if you feel this strongly about it, this is a place that you should maybe investigate putting your time and effort into. And that's sort of why I'm here today. On top of it, when my husband and I were doing our Where We're Going to Live hunt, because we knew we didn't want to live in Massachusetts. We were doing our Where Are We Going to Live hunt. Having gone through the school system here, I was just sort of reflecting back on things that have happened, and I didn't know if I wanted to put my kids in the school district. So, it's a great place to make a change, and really something I didn't know existed. I was telling you earlier, when you don't have children, you don't think to investigate the Board of Education. I mean, why would that ever have even dawned on me that it existed? But now I'm sort of being thrust into it really quickly, having all these kids so close together. You learn more, and here you are.
I know how you feel. My son is a 4-year-old, and he decided to go to St. Christopher's Academy because of the troubles that we're hearing about with the Board of Education.
Yeah. They have to wear masks now too, correct, right?
I don't think so.
We'll have to investigate. We'll have to investigate that. I mean, it's difficult for a young child to have to wear. I mean, they don't wear them correctly, first and foremost. I mean, my daughter chews hers, so it's soaking wet. There is actually an instance where she said that she dropped her mask on the ground, and then she had to put it back on her face because that's all they had. They don't have extras for them. So, it defeats the purpose of a mask and of
I'm surprised they just don't have a few extras if something like that happens.
Well, that's what I said. And, you're sort of put between a rock and a hard place. So I ended up actually buying some for that classroom. Hey, if my daughter's mask is soaking wet, or if anyone's is soaking wet, or if anyone drops theirs on the floor, could you please not put it back on their face? Because now germs and bacteria that would have never even been on her face before are now put on there. It just is very counterproductive.
And down her mouth.
Yeah, chewing them. Yeah, sure. So it's been an interesting debacle. I mean, there's not many places that I know of that don't have the masks on. So you have to, if you want your kids to have, parents have been put between a rock and a hard place. I think that most parents don't want their children to have to wear the mask, but.
Well, what are you saying then? If you were on the board, you would say it's an optional thing?
I think that parents need to have more of a voice and more of a choice in their children, especially when it comes to matters of health.
Right.
I don't think that should I make the board? It's not my place as even just a regular person or as a Board of Education member to tell you what's safest for your child in regards to their health. I know the risks that I'm taking not putting a mask on my child or putting a mask on my child. And it's not my responsibility to tell a parent otherwise. But, I'm in that rock and hard place. I don't want her to wear the mask. There's learning issues. I think that once COVID sort of settles down, there's going to be a whole bunch of stuff and research that comes out about the damage that it really did to children in regards to learning. I mean, we kind of know it. So you can see it in the lines right now anyway. You can see what it's done, especially with remote learning, what that did to kids. My niece actually developed anxiety from it.
Sure.
She's only 7, so it's just sort of been a weird run. I think that as this starts to settle and people come back to normal and all that kind of stuff, I think that there's going to be a lot of research that comes out, the negative effects that it had on children.
Well, I think everybody reacted too fast.
Yeah.
I think, you hear the danger, and obviously the older people were dying fairly fast.
Yeah.
And so you get scared. You don't know which way to go. But maybe just because I'm a little older than you, but I remember way back when polio was a big thing.
Yeah.
And some people wouldn't take any shots for that. It didn't. People are worried about what you're putting in their body. And since you can't say it's all good, you're not going to have any problem, because the problems are very, showing.
Yeah. And I'm not an anti-vaxxer. I'm not against it. I think that if people want to vaccinate themselves, they should vaccinate themselves. They can vaccinate their children if they want to. I personally do not want to vaccinate my children because there's too much unknown about it. And it's been pushed on us very fast. And I have actually referenced, when discussing people, I have referenced polio, because you have to sort of figure, at one point with the polio vaccine, there was a generation that was sort of the experiment on this vaccine that's necessary. But I don't believe, again, in regards to health, I don't think that that's anyone's place to tell me how I should take care of myself. So in that regard, so it's the same thing with school. I don't think that a kid should have to be vaccinated to go to get a public education. It's just, it's crazy to me. And unfortunately, that is something that we're going to start to, now that the COVID vaccine they're hoping to get it approved for 5 and over. So, I mean, it's scary. It's not right. It's not right to do that to children and to make parents choose between something like that when you don't know what it might do and going to school. Well,
that was what happened after polio, and there was another problem too that they had for pregnant women, that they got some medicine that distorted their babies, one way or another. And it's a while. People said, well, everybody to go to school, you have to have a certain series of shots. Well, yeah, but that only happened after years and years of use. Before that, then they could, felt that they had every known possibility. They knew what to do with it. But do you see anything else in the education that besides the result of this virus?
Well, I think one of the issues that I had concerns with when my husband and I were discussing, should we put our kids in the Nashua school system? It was kind of like, okay, we're going to move to Nashua because it's a great place, awesome neighborhood. So now it was like, do we put them in public school system or do we put them in private school? And my issue with the public school system was that it's starting to become a little too political for my taste. I remember when I was in school, I distinctly remember teachers saying, don't talk politics with me. That's not appropriate for school. Like, that's not where it should be. I remember that. I remember that. I also remember the shift in that sort of right before I left, when things started to become a little bit more, I guess I'll say, politically correct. I remember we used to have Christmas concerts. I was in choir. And my senior year, they changed it to the holiday concert. And so, then I left high school, and now, like, I don't know what's going on because I'm not in school and whatever. So now I've got children, and now I'm starting to pay more attention about what's going on. And politics have just sort of infiltrated the educational
hasn't
program,
it,
and it's not,
unfortunately.
again, it's not appropriate. That's not for children to have. They're there to learn reading and writing and arithmetic and basic stuff. My mom thinks they should learn how to balance checkbooks. I tell her those don't exist anymore. Well, they do, but we don't use them. That's what Bank of America Online is for. You know, that's what they should be learning, and they shouldn't. The politics and views of the teachers should not be infiltrated into their education and ideologies, because those are starting to come out too. It should just be the necessities that they need to get through life. The teachers' views and the school's views and the Board of Education's views shouldn't be part of their curriculum.
Well, do you think that the transparency runs into that? I mean, that they don't want to publicize anything that they're doing or planning to do?
Yeah, I mean, I personally, I'm the kind of person that wants to know everything, which is kind of bizarre that I wasn't paying attention to Board of Education when I was pregnant. You'd think that I would have caught on to that. So should I make the board? I think one of the big things, and I would guess that most of the candidates feel the same way, is that there needs to be more transparency. It kind of seems the meetings that you watch that the things have already been decided before they get there.
Definitely.
And you know, I feel so bad for the parents that go up and speak, because it's just sort of like it's going through a blank slate, with the exception of a couple. You would think that the parents are supposed to go to discuss the topics on the agenda. You would think then that there would be a break regardless, for everyone to get together, almost like a trial. After everyone said their piece, they go and they discuss what they heard, and then go from there. But it's not the case. Like, the parents have said what they need to say, and then they just decide immediately after that. And it's sort of crazy to me, because even though I don't necessarily agree with everything that the parents say, there have been parents that have said stuff where I was like, it's actually pretty interesting. That's a pretty interesting fact. Like, I'd be interested to know more about that.
Sure.
But that hasn't happened on the board. It's sort of like parents say your piece about what we're going to vote on today, and then we're going to vote on it without any talk about what's going on. No mention of any of the parents. Well, this person said this really interesting thing. It's just like, okay, thanks for talking. We did that formality. Now let's do what we were going to do. That's sort of the vibe that you get.
Well, I think that's the same way in the Board of Aldermen, too.
Yeah.
And I think that maybe they ought to have these open sessions that are publicized a little bit more, where you're just going to talk about the issues, you know, and then, you know, 2 days away, they do some voting on it maybe, and they have another discussion.
I think that's smart. It would take more time, obviously, on the Board of Education members' part, but like, that's what we're here for.
Yeah,
so like, that's what we're
right.
supposed to be doing. You can't make Nashua a town that people love and appreciate and agree with if you don't include their decisions, and that's sort of what's happening. It's,
you want more support, and that's where to get it. If you feel that they're showing interest in what you have to say. I mean, most people who get up there are not used to speaking to a group, and say everything you want to say in 3 minutes or whatever they give you is very difficult for many.
Yeah. I think that it would be better, and I don't even know if it's possible to change it, but I think that it would be better to have a session of time specifically just for parent comment, and then we reconvene at a different point and discuss what we've, you know, I like to do research. That person that said something that was very interesting, I can't remember exactly how long ago it was or what it exactly was. It was something related to COVID facts and masks, which you know that I'm against. We just discussed that. But he said something and I was like, that's actually really interesting to know. I would have liked the opportunity to, as a board member, to then go research that and see how accurate it is.
Well, I think you can set your own rules. I mean, you agreed to the rules in one of your first sessions.
You all need to vote on it and agree.
Yeah.
If you're wildly outnumbered, it doesn't really matter.
Oh, that's true.
There's a couple that try their darnest for the families, and it just gets unheard, which is sad because it's not supposed to be. It's supposed to be bipartisan, and it's clearly not.
Well, I think one other thing that plays into the issue a little bit is the money. You know, if they get funding from a certain group, they'll feel obligated to vote the way the group wants.
Yeah.
I mean, that goes on for the whole political situation. But when it gets down to something like this, I think you really should have more control over that.
Yeah, I mean, a Board of Education member should represent the parents and the children, and in essence, the teachers. But, you know, we provide their funding, I guess, their payment. Like we can't necessarily work for them in that regard, if that's what you're referring to. I think that the focus of the board needs to be taken back. Everything sort of needs to go back to basics, and we need to be taken back, and we need to sort of reset the views of parents and what's right for the children. That is sort of first and foremost, in my opinion.
Well, I think you have to look like you welcome the parents.
Yeah.
I mean,
It certainly is not the vibe right now.
Yeah.
On either end. It's just, again, it's very like, okay, this is our formality, like this is our time slot for this, so let's get it done and then let's do our voting. And it's just unfortunate because parents take their time to go there. They've written out, a lot of them have papers that they read from. They've put a lot of thought into what they have to say, and it's just sort of disregarded. So that's not how I operate in life and or on the Board of Education.
Well, you're going to have other problems too. I mean, you're going one of the discussions coming up is the new school they want to put together. I don't know how much you've looked into that, but that's really questionable from some people.
I've heard about it. You know, again, I've got a lot going on with these three little ones, and even stuff that I didn't even talk about with the three little ones. But like I know bits and pieces about it. I've heard things here and there, but I haven't had enough time to really dive into it to give like an appropriate answer.
It's quite a thing that when you get into it. And I guess another way too is another question I had was how do they operate? Do they still operate with a superintendent more or less doing their agenda for them?
I don't know if that's the intention. I'm not 100% sure. Again, it's one of those things where I wish that I had time to know more. There's so much to learn. And I don't know all of the bits and pieces. When I got asked a question about a superintendent last time that I was here, and I had said that like I was living in Massachusetts when there was a swap between the superintendent then and the superintendent now. And I missed, it was about sort of that swap, and I missed it. And it's too bad that I did. It's too bad that I did, because I think that it would have been something that maybe even sparked my interest in this beforehand, because it's sort of an interesting thing to know. I know the superintendent has obviously a major role in the dealings with, you know, everything. And I missed it. I wish I did. I wish I saw it. I wish it probably would have just sort of sparked my lightning a little bit more, and I feel like I wouldn't have missed the boat to get to figure out what was going on with my kids. You know, my husband and I thought we were doing right by them by like shielding them from everything that's going on. Yeah. And it turns out that was not the right decision. We kind of felt like, oh, Holly, that's my oldest, she's 3. Holly's young. We'll let it ride out. But it sort of like trickled into the children. And so it's sort of like panic mode. How do I do the best thing that I can do to protect my kids? And, you know, other kids, like my niece who went through all of this trouble, like how do I protect them? So it's sort of like panic mode, and I didn't get to pay attention to stuff like superintendent details yet. I'll learn it though. I'm a smart cookie. I'll learn it quick.
That's obvious. So how's your campaign going?
It's not going as great as I had hoped in regards to time. It's just sort of slipped away. Actually, one of the things that happened is my middle son broke his femur.
Oh,
so
no.
It's been a catastrophe. He broke his femur, and my newborn has GERD and colic. So in the midst of trying to care for this young boy, it's called a spica cast, it's insane, trying to care for him and trying to medicate my newborn 4 times a day, it's just been bananas, and it's hard for anyone else to be able to do it. So it's taken up a lot of time. So I haven't been able to get out as much as I would like to, and I haven't been able to meet all of the candidates, which is actually...
That's something too.
Yeah. I've met the ones that are endorsed.
Some people too.
Yeah. I've met the ones that are endorsed by the NRCC. And they're really great. Lynn is awesome. She's also a really smart cookie. She's very useful too with information in regards to COVID and hospitals and all that kind of stuff. You never really know what you can read, but someone that's in the thick of it, it's nice to be able to get a more neutral perspective. And Alicia and Allison are the other two that are endorsed by the NRCC, and they're amazing. They fight for the parents like no one's business. All of the letters that they've written to the Senate and to the governor, it's just like you can't even calculate it all.
Yeah.
They're working really hard for everybody. So they've been great people to work with and talk to. But I would have liked to talk to everyone. It just hasn't gotten to that.
Well, it's I don't know how we could do that. I guess at one time we used to run debates, but we haven't done that in a long time.
There are little ones here and there that I've heard about, but again, the timing, my son broke his femur 4 weeks ago. I got 2 weeks left in the cast. Almost there. He broke his femur 4 weeks ago, and a lot of stuff was happening in the midst of that, which I just couldn't. It was too insane trying to care for everyone. I mean, I want to be on the Board of Education, but I've always wanted to be a mother, so I gotta figure out where to place the priorities. I do have people that go out and pass out my information, and I do what I can when I can, but I wish that I could have done more. It's just...
I tried little mailings too, some of that too.
Yes, we're doing some of those at a group. Emails, I think that we're doing as well. So those will be coming out. I like being in person more. It's just, I think it's a better connection with people.
Definitely.
And I haven't been able to do that the way that I would have liked to. And now it's getting down to the wire. There's not really that much time left. So it's sort of like, my dad calls it throwing a chair off the Titanic. It's just it's still going to sink. So the time is still coming.
Wow.
So sign waving actually is probably where I'm going to stick a lot of my time right now, which is actually fun. I've done it a couple times.
Passed out some signs too.
Just waving to people going by. Everyone, if you're at a stoplight or if you're at a right location, you could still talk to people quickly and hand them, your literature as they're going by. It's fun.
Another way to do it, one of my favorites that not too many people picked up, was when your church goes, have a sign right at the exit.
Yeah.
And, wave to them. They recognize you maybe. And sometimes you do it not even at your church, do it at another church.
It's about name recognition. You need to get your signs everywhere.
That's
so
right.
the sign waving actually is the fastest way for me to do it right now.
Right.
But again, I would have much preferred being able to knock on as many doors as possible and meet with people and get even more insight as to things that are bothering them and things that they like and don't like and stuff like that. It just hasn't really panned out that way for me with the kids the age that I have.
Yeah, it's something. But I guess the social media is also the way to do it nowadays. I don't have to...
Yeah, I mean, I erased my Facebook account. I had to get one. I had to get it back to do this because really, it's the best way to operate.
Yeah.
But I had, I got rid of it before because I just, again, with these kids, it's just...
How do you handle it? I could never get it to handle all my emails, let alone social media.
Yeah. Well, it's my job to take care of them. So I just, you figure it out. It's my job to take care of them. I would like this to be another job of mine. And you figure out how to make it work as best you can. Yeah. And if it doesn't work for me this year, then there's always the next one. So I do the best I can, and I hope that people that at least have the same general viewpoints get in there. 4 seats is a lot to make an impact on the board. So hopefully... Well,
yeah, you need to have some people to help out. You work, to get these... whatever motions you want or whatever.
I do have some really great people helping me. My parents obviously are good, but there's a few other ones out there. And even other people that are running, bless their hearts, they're running and they're handing out my literature with them too. It's been a really nice group effort on this side of the aisle of people that I've spoken to. So we're trying hard to make people happy.
Well, this interview will be able to be put on your social media.
Hopefully people like it.
Okay. We'll give you some information on how to do that.
Okay.
And I guess, I don't know if you have a chance to go to any meetings yet or not before the election.
I'm doing what I can when I can. I'm going to one tonight. And anything else that pops up, I will be able to go to, assuming that it's not a particular day of the week. There's some days that just can't hack it.
Right.
But it's starting to get easier now that my youngest is over the thrush. Thank God. That was horrible. And the GERD is maintained. My other son is more manageable in the cast. There's a light at the end of the tunnel. So fortunately, my 3-year-old is doing well.
Good.
Knock on some wood. So there's light at the end of the tunnel. So it's been a little bit easier to get out there and start to make a dent.
Do you have any kind of PTO meetings or like that, parent teachers, where you can...
for me as a parent or just in general? I do with my kids' school, yeah.
I mean, do you use that to talk to other people who are voting there, who are voters?
You try and trickle it in when and wherever you can. It's easy too, especially when you're in that setting. It's easy to kind of gauge where people are at and what they're feeling. But again, it shouldn't even really matter to gauge it actually, because it is supposed to be bipartisan. Kids are kids; they should be neutral. So I think that most people want what's best for their children. It's not the same kind of game. So wherever you can get it in, you get it in.
Do you meet any people that are satisfied with what's happening, or?
It's sort of a mixed bag. It depends on what you talk about. I have spoken to some teachers, actually, who seem to be pretty satisfied with how things are going, which actually surprised me. I sort of a mixed bag. I thought that they would have a little bit more to say about coming back from COVID, but it's sort of never really, it always ends up coming back to the masks. But there's so much more than just the masks that are happening with the school system right now, but somehow it always gets diverted back to that. But there's a couple more teachers actually that I plan on speaking to about things and going from there. Parents, though, in general, again, it always ends up going back to the masks. They don't like the masks, and I agree. Parent choice, 100%. So,
now, I was just wondering whether the teachers felt that the parents were people that they wanted to communicate with, or whether they said, just let us do what we do best.
Yeah, it depends on. I know a teacher that she actually just retired from a Title I school, and that was her biggest wish. She, of all the things that happened as her tenure there, what she really wished was that there were more parents to get involved with and talk to. And hopefully that's something that the Board of Education can inspire.
I think so. I think that's one of the prime things that you should be pushing.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I want to be involved in my kids' life. That's what I wish the school sort of did more when I was in school, and that's a goal of mine for the children today and in the future.
You make that known when you get the voters. Well, thank you very much, Kristie, for the interview, but we're out of time.
All right.
So have a good campaign for the rest of the next couple of weeks.
Thank you. Wish you luck. I get my walking shoes on.
And, I'll be at a celebration if you get on.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
The preceding program was provided by an independent producer solely responsible for its content. The opinions expressed do not necessarily represent the views of this station, its staff, board of directors, or underwriters.